Hello everybody, welcome to a new episode of FEMME FLEX Friday. I'm Alina Popa, and today my guest co-host is Whitney Jones.
Hi guys!
Whitney, what do we have for these people out there in store?
Okay, we have a fun show for you guys today. We are talking about off-season because right now it's the beginning of the year. Many people are still in their off-season while others are getting ready to start it. So who better than to have three rock stars on this show who are athletes themselves, currently competing, as well as coaching a team of phenomenal athletes.
Not only
great shows.
Not only that, Whitney, but we have three different divisions, right?
Yes.
We have Theresa Ivancik, who is a women's bodybuilding, right? We have Wendy Fortino with figure, and Breena Martinez with bikini. So it's going to be fascinating to see how different divisions, right?
Oh yes.
Apply their rules and in their off seasons.
Absolutely. Everyone has a different approach, a different strategy. So we're sharing it on all different platforms to educate all of you out there because there's so many questions that go into off season.
And all three of you are coaches as well, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So we can apply this question. What's your approach to off season? Are you like no plans, or do you think that off season is very important to have its own strategy and planning? Breena?
Breena first.
Breena?
Breena.
Sure. Yeah, I've learned a lot going into my 7th year of competing, and I can honestly say that I have done it all, the good, the bad, the maybe we don't want to talk about that.
Oh no, we want to know everything.
But no, I really believe that you learn through trial and error. You're gonna make mistakes, and throughout my career I have had off seasons where I had no plan and I ate my face off and I regretted it, but I didn't stay in that headspace too long. I would always get myself back in the gym. Now that I'm older and wiser, I have learned that it is good to have a little bit of a break, but you need structure. For me, my focus with my improvement season at this moment is getting my calories up. I'm trying to feed myself more, utilize that fuel. That way I can still, maintain as much muscle as possible. And I want to see improvement when I'm stepping on stage. And I feel like you can't improve if you're not measuring, if you don't have a structure, if you don't have a guide to know what was good, what could be improved. So I do believe in structure. But I think everyone's level of discipline is in a different place. But I do believe it grows with time. It develops with time. And so that's why it's much easier for me to say, no, I'm not going to eat my face off this time. I'm going to follow my structure, my plan.
How about you, Wendy? What's your approach to off season?
So for me, I think there are different people in different stages of their, journey, right? So when people start competing, it's like a lot of times people, they don't know how long they're going to go for. Like me personally, I've been at this for 12 years, but when I first started, I was a track athlete, and I think Whitney, you were too. I was a gymnast and then a track athlete, and I already had a lot of muscle on my body, and I was already pretty lean. But for me, it was unique because my body shape was not that great. I had a very, trap dominant, midsection dominant. My body shape was not a very aesthetic shape, right? It was very performance based. So in my off seasons, I have had to put a lot of effort into reshaping myself, right? So, and I really had a long-term approach. When I found out that I liked the sport, I realized I was going to be at it for a long time. So in the off season, it was the most critical time for me to really make those improvements and to really create what I wanted to create. And I knew it wasn't going to be a 12 weeks before the contest I was going to compete in kind of a project. So there were years where I literally stripped away all of my muscle. This was early on when I was probably had a couple years after I started competing. I was trying to get my pro card, and I stripped all my muscle down, and then I put it back together the way that I wanted to, because I'm a mesomorph. I build muscle easily. Not everybody is like that. So that's me, right? But a lot of people, they need to build muscle, and maybe they haven't even been an athlete or whatever. And so it's really important, again, also for different reasons, to realize that the off season is where you make a lot of those improvements. And people have different approaches, but the key that I have noticed after working with a lot of people and finding a lot of success with a lot of different type of people, there is this sweet spot of, you know, body mass. You have to be lean enough to where you're not going to lose all of your muscle that you gain once you try to get ready for a show. But you also need to have a layer of body fat so that you're properly fueled and your body's in that sweet spot place. So we call it like the sweet spot, you know? And so if you're somebody who's trying to build muscle, I think a trap people get into is they overload themselves in the off season, trying to build a bunch of muscle. But when the body fat gets too high, you know, the joints might be overly cushioned, so we get a false sense that we're lifting heavier because the weight is bouncing off easier, and then when it's time to get lean for the contest. So it's really important to figure out, how long are you planning on being in the sport? If you find out that you love it and you want to be in it for a long time, you know, have a really good strategy for having that sweet spot and periodizing your training, you know, your intensity levels and your volume, the amount of, you know, loading and workouts and cardio and training. They have to all go up and down as you continue through your journey. So there's a lot of stuff there to unpack, but I guess it really is about every single person is different. We have to look at the goals, look at what you're trying to do, and figure out a strategy, but always trying to make sure you don't escape that sweet spot. You know?
And it's absolutely all about strategy, as you said in the past, right? Absolutely strategy, prioritizing what you want to do. I want to know Theresa's approach to it. How do you do this as a bodybuilder? I mean, I've heard bodybuilders adding up 50 pounds in the off season. How do you approach this?
I approach it like with my clients also. Like, I try to change the word off season to improvement season, so they understand that the surplus of calories that they're actually going to intake should not be sloppy, and you should not chase the scale for all the wrong reasons. You can chase it and say, hey, I want to be 200 pounds, but if you're eating, you know, ice cream, ho-ho, and Twinkies doing it, your body composition is not going to be the same. So again, touching base like the other girls, you know, you need to eat the proper amounts of foods, but like kind of different kinds. You know, so like I'm one of those people that, like, if I want a cheat meal, I'll have the pizza, but I'm going to have a protein source with it. Like, I'm just really psychotic about doing that. But again, like they were saying, you have to have a surplus of calories increase, because coming out of a show, we are very, very, very depleted. Some no carbs, some no fats. So we have to slowly increase those back into the off season. We can't jump right into the off season. So that's what we call as a coach reverse dieting. So as you came down, you have to come back up, and then once you find your bulk maintenance, then you can kind of increase and play, I believe, with a little bit more calories, which again, you can increase the weights in the gym because the food will dictate that. And you can train a lot harder, you can go heavier, but smarter, and use proper form. But definitely a calorie surplus within reason, and try to eat different types of foods or spices or condiments that you wouldn't have whenever you're dieting. So whenever you go to strip all that kind of stuff, your body's going to respond.
And you know, you guys all kind of touched on this. You're all veteran athletes. So one thing that we were discussing, and we have to ask, because as we told you, Breena, we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty, dirty stuff too. It can't be all rainbows and butterflies. So the big word, rebound. It's something that is very common in our industry, and especially for the newer athletes. Whether you're on the amateur level or you're a new pro, I feel like everyone has experienced a bad rebound. So we got to hear from each of you guys your rebound story. So Theresa, any bad experiences? Did you do any? Tell us the goods.
So I have been doing this for 14 years. And when I started, I was a figure competitor, and that was the first 2 years of my career. And then going in 2010, it was like, okay, I'm going to be a bodybuilder. And I am not joking you. I went from 120 to 180 like quick.
Wow.
Like, oh, I'm going to be a bodybuilder. I'm just going to eat whatever the hell I want to eat. And I'm going to just eat and train and train and train. So I went up from literally 120 to 180.
Wow.
And it was like, I looked at my fiance, I'm like, we need to get this under control. And I'll tell you what, I struggled because I was like trying to reduce my calories down. I was trying to eat super clean. I was doing endless amounts of cardio. I couldn't get the weight to move. Because I ate so much junk, and then I tried to eat clean. And then when my prep came, I was eating the same foods I ate trying to get dieted down. It wasn't working.
Yeah.
But I mean, I ate pretty much, I'm telling you, anything under the sun. I mean, I was very dedicated to my protein, so my protein numbers always matched. It was those carbohydrates. They got completely out of control.
Okay, now Wendy, so 60 pounds, did you hit that level?
I'm 5 feet tall. That would be quite the poundage. But I will say that, when I first started competing, I had come from being a track athlete, and I've been an athlete my whole life. I never had really gained a bunch of weight, but what was interesting is that food was never something that I ever overly focused on. I never had any kind of like eating issues or whatever. But as soon as you tell someone that they can't have something, all of a sudden they want it, right?
Absolutely.
And so for me, after being restrictive, all of a sudden, after my first show, there were all these weird things that I wanted, like crazy desserts that I never would, obsess over. I overdid it, but I made myself sick. But because it's always interesting, because you go to you resort to what you know. And as a runner, as a track athlete, cardio was my jam, right?
Yeah.
So I would eat a bunch of food, and then I would do like the fix it approach, right? And so I was not obviously making progress. I was just trying to cardio my way out of the calories, trying to they say you can't out-train a bad diet. Well, like Breena said, you have to go through a lot of things on your own to figure that out. And I figured that out. I mean, my body, the quality of my muscle just wasn't as good because I was eating a lot, but I would do as much cardio as it took to like burn all the calories off. And then it was just it was like a vicious cycle, And
that's obviously not a great approach. You got to learn from that. And obviously, as we can tell, you did. So it's a good thing you got that out of the way early. We're going to take a quick break, and then Breena, we're coming back with you. All right, we are back, and Breena, we got to hear your stories and your experience with Rebound.
Oh man, I remember it like yesterday because I never wanted to repeat that. And I say that now, and I still repeated the behavior for about 3 more shows, but here we go. Let's air this out. It was 2014 NPC USA Championships. I won my pro card in Class E out of like 46 girls. I was stoked. My husband was too. And he's like, let's eat. You deserve this. I'm like, yeah, I do. So we go to Bacchanal Buffet in Vegas. And I tell you.
Oh, I love that buffet.
Right? Everything.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Mexican.
I've done it so many times too.
Right?
Breena.
And then first, like, I was like, everything I could possibly want, everything that I missed all throughout prep, I need in this very moment. I made that decision, and boy, did I regret it. We won't get too into the details because TMI, but when I say things were happening at 2 a.m. that we didn't want to happen, don't come in here. This is embarrassing. I don't want you to see me like this. It was bad. So yes, I ate my face off to where, my skin felt so tight. I couldn't walk. Like I had cankles, guys. It is not okay to just let yourself go.
And for you to have cankles, that's a lot. I know you well, so you are far from cankles.
Oh, I know that.
I would say I went from 117 pounds to a good 132 in less than 2 weeks. So
wow.
That is a lot, Breena. But
that's a lot.
Talking about numbers, Theresa, what's your on-stage weight and what's your off-season weight?
On stage, I'm normally around like 150.
Okay.
And then off season, I mean, right now I'm actually staying at 160. I haven't even moved.
Oh, okay. That's not a lot. How about the caloric intake?
But my normal one was 180. I would normally go up to 180 and then down to
150. 180, 150, so 30 pounds.
I'd say probably about like anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 for like off season.
Okay.
And I mean, I've been extremely low in these last couple preps, so anywhere from like 1,500 to 1,200, literally.
Okay. How about your stats, Wendy? On season, off season, and calories.
Yeah, so when I'm on stage, I'm about 112 pounds. And then off season, I usually stay somewhere between like 117 to 120 pounds. Christmas time, it's more like 120. But in terms of my calories, you know, it's interesting because I am very intuitive when I'm in the off season, and I always encourage our clients and our athletes to get to that place where they're able to do that. You know, you have to be really educated and know your body really well, but I honestly don't even know. I go off of how my body responds every day. I would guess that I probably range anywhere from like probably 1,500 to 2,000 calories on any given day.
Okay.
That's an estimate, but I'm very intuitive, yeah.
And Breena, how about you?
Over the 137 that you got in 2 weeks, do you get more than that?
I'm better about it. Ease into it. I mean, I know that my body likes to be, you know, around 135 to 140 in the improvement season. When I step on stage, however, I'm closer to, you know, 119, 120. My calories as of right now, I started off my improvement season trying to get between, well, I'm at 2,000 calories right now, but my goal is to get to 23, 25, 28 before preparing for a show. And usually when I'm cutting, I definitely go really low. We're looking, I probably only stay at 1,500 in the beginning, and it can get to 12 to 1,000. It just kind of depends on how my body's responding.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's the difference between the different divisions too. You know, we've talked about this a lot, and especially for myself as a fitness athlete, we need to be fueled to do the routine. And same thing for Theresa, for you for bodybuilding too. It's like the amount of muscle you're trying to fill out on stage versus what Breena is for bikini, it's quite different. So I always try to tell people, make sure that you are following a plan for you, because every body is different, every division is different, and you guys as coaches know all of this. And Wendy, you brought up a good point about intuitive eating. So as a coach, since you guys are all coaches, how are you coaching your athletes in the off season to follow intuitive eating?
Because obviously you that particular client would need to have some experience to follow that intuitive.
And guidance.
There's a difference between craving, right?
Yes.
And pigging out, right?
That is such a good question. And you know, we actually are very structured in the, you know, plans that we give, because it's really important in order to get to a place where you are intuitive. It's important for you to full-fledged experience the most optimal foods that are fueling your body in a really structured way. So it's like when somebody goes from like off the deep end, like totally unstructured, and then like they enter a plan, like, you know, where they're like just fitting macros with whatever they want, they're going to resort to the foods that they've been eating and try to squeeze in the macros. But if you start off with structure and they start to connect to the foods that fuel them, that nourish them, they can feel and they get connected to those foods. And then when you start kind of going off into more of like an intuitive type of approach, which of course as coach, we always want people to, like, you know, fly off free and be able to live their lives the way that they want. The thing is they're now connected to the nourishment and the way that they felt when they're eating those foods. So I always feel like, even though I go intuitive, I believe in structure when we want to get somebody to rule out variables and problem solve and figure out their own bodies and connect to the right types of foods.
So it's strategy, it's strategic, intuitive eating, which again is a little more controlled, because as a coach, they're coming to you, they need the guidance, they need the accountability, but that makes a lot more sense.
Right, intuitive eating is in my opinion advanced, and I think you know, anything where people are making decisions for themselves, you know, if you really want to help somebody, it's important to have them go through like a period of time of, you know, education, problem solving, figuring things out with, you know, without putting a ton of variables into the equation.
And Theresa, I know that you mentioned reverse dieting, but have you ever done what's called the anabolic window after a show, anabolic window training, in which, you know, we take 4 to 6 or 8 weeks, and then you eat a lot and you train really hard? Have you done that kind of approach?
Never actually done that type of approach. I mean, this year was the first year that I actually came off and just, I've been very like psychotic about what I'm putting in my body. But, you know, touching base on like something like she said, you know, I eat pretty clean, But if I want ice cream, I go get it. If I want, I eat Wendy's every day. But I stick to my calories and my macros, and if I don't feel like having the French fries, I'll just have a sandwich.
You have Wendy's every day, did I hear it right?
Every day, and I have not gained a pound. I've stayed at 160. And it's like, I'll eat ice cream, Frosties, whatever I want.
You should try the Five Guys, probably.
But it's just like, it's like she said, you gotta give your clients like something to look forward to too.
Yeah.
If you can give them a free meal, you try to give them a free meal and tell them within reason. But when I give my clients a diet, I give them the diet, but then in parentheses, I put P, C, and F. And I let them know what kind of carbohydrates, how many proteins they have in there. So if they want to fall off the plan, eat around what you have, but just insert something different. So they kind of get a guideline more or less on their portions of what they are. And I just say, if you're going to cheat, swap, and then always like meal 5, have something that you want to have in the off season.
So you give those macros for their cheat meal, or you're meaning for the day?
Basically for the day, and then whatever they choose to, I try to teach them within reason. So I'm making them vulnerable to doing the right thing and not having a spillover, because I don't want to be in total control of them. Just like she said, I want them to be able to make their own decisions, but smart. So it's like, I have clients, they go to Wendy's, and they're little girls, and they're getting these like double cheeseburgers, okay? And they're larges. I'm like, can we back down to like a small?
Yeah.
So it's starting to like go down. So then when she checked in with me, it was like, she was so proud of herself because she went to a medium. Then the next week she went to a small. So it's teaching them to be able to control, but still have fun in life and in the off season.
Yes.
It is, in the end of the day, it's a lifestyle. We are athletes, and we are athletes for the long run. So we need to continuously keep it under control, what we do, how we eat, how we train, right? This is extremely important.
Just like that is like, if you eat the same amount of foods like we talked about before that you have on a diet plan, your body is not going to respond to
Absolutely.
diet. So if you were throwing these things in occasionally, like I said, you got condiments, which means calories, you got extra carbs, you got extra fats, you got all this stuff running, and they're simple things, creamer and coffee, ketchup on your stuff. Like, it's easy things that you can pull away, but you add that up, boom, there goes 100 calories, boom, there goes 200 calories. So you have to put them in. I'm very forceful on putting different things in, because when I go to remove them, your body is going to respond.
You are so right about that. And we have a hot topic coming your way, but only after this commercial break.
People always ask how I got here. I was willing to work just a little harder than everyone else, every damn day. If I can have hundreds of hours back, I'm gonna grab them. Spending hours prepping chicken, rice, and vegetables, F that. I rely on perfect nutrition. I rely on Trifecta.
And we are back, guys. And ladies, I have been talking to Whitney about this, and we were like, yeah, it totally happens. What's your take on the post-show blues, right?
Post-show blues. Well, and let's be honest, a lot of times people don't want to talk about it. It's almost like it's embarrassing if you're depressed or sad after your show's over as you lead into the off season. But it's a real thing, and it's something that I feel needs to be talked about. I brought it up to Lynn. She's like, yes, she's experienced it. I've experienced it. We'd love to hear your take on what it is that you have experienced yourself, how you've dealt with it, and how you coach your athletes to be prepared. So Breena, let's start with you.
Yeah, the post-show blues is a real thing. I mean, when you think about what you have accomplished, you've gotten your body to arguably its best, especially when you're a brand new competitor. And you're just like, wow, I've never been this lean. I've never seen this much muscle. I mean, your family, your friends, everyone's celebrating you, right? Like, and then there's all this excitement. It's like, if we put it on a graph, everything's going like this leading up into your show. Mm-hmm. The show happens, it goes away, and then boom, everything hits you. You're going to start gaining the weight because it's natural. You're not supposed to stay, that lean all year round. Again, some people are special in that regard, like Wendy. Like, I've never seen you not look good in your improvement season. I feel like I've known you forever. But not everyone is going to look that way. And unfortunately, with social media, you're only seeing everyone's best in snippets. So you don't get to see that people do actually carry a little bit more body fat, and maybe you just don't see them. So for me, it hit me really hard. You know, I was also an athlete my whole life, but food and nutrition was never really a focus. You know, I played basketball in college. I never cared about the scale in college. I didn't even have like what I would term body dysmorphia until I started competing. You know, I never even looked at food. I didn't really care about how I dressed. And now all of a sudden, all that matters. And so you do feel this dip, and it's an emotional dip. And what I can say is I think everyone experiences it to some degree, you know, on that dial. Some it's more than others. I do feel that with time, it's gotten better, because the first time it's hard. You almost think, am I ever going to get that body back?
Yeah.
Like I worked so hard to get it. So when you're new, you worry like, was that a one-hit wonder? Like, am I going to get that again? But when you continuously compete like I have, it's like, I know I can get that body back and improve it. Like I've proven that to myself. So those blues don't attack me as much, but it doesn't mean I don't still have the feels. Like, for instance, this past Olympia, I was down to 6% body fat, the best I've ever looked in my entire career.
Yes, you looked amazing.
Yeah.
I was ecstatic, guys. I've never been so happy to place 10th in my entire career. And then I was looking at my pictures. I'm doing all these photo shoots. I'm feeling good about myself. And then everything goes away, and then my real body comes back. That's what I like to term it. You know,
real body?
That's a great way, actually.
And even though I know like this is the part of the process, a part of me's like, but I miss my abs, I miss my cuts. But I also know that if I want to repeat that body, I was on prep all year last year. I need to embrace this caloric surplus. I need to make sure I can bring that body back and nourish my body and take care of it. You cannot be in a caloric deficit for that long. Right now, it's all about, you know, getting my blood work, checking my hormones. So how I fight the post-show blues is by game planning. It goes back to strategy. That
strategy. Yep.
Around.
Yep.
As long as I have a plan, know where I'm headed, and know what I'm gonna do, I'm okay and I can accept. If I don't have a plan, if I don't have baby goals, if there's no reason for me to like put down the fork and keep working hard, it's a lot harder to push away those post-show blues. So you gotta have a plan of action, something that you can wrap your mind around and focus on. That always gets me out of the post-show blues. And that's usually how I game plan with my clients. You know, we talk about what their goals are, the why behind the what. When you understand that, it's a little bit easier to digest, and you can finally kind of put your ego to rest about how you're looking right now, because you have bigger and better goals that you've got to attack.
For sure.
And nothing changes.
And Theresa, do you give your clients a heads up before their last show, or do you wait to see kind of how they're handling it? Is it something that you give a FYI, this is what you're going to experience, just be prepared?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much do. I have a checklist that I give them before and after the show.
Smart.
Because we all know we're going to go through
I like
it.
that, the checklist. I like it.
The thing is I let them know, hey, I was in your shoes once. I've been there. I know what you feel like. So you have a coach that has experienced for themselves. So they have my cell phone number. They have my email. They know that we can talk anytime, and I understand it. So it's not like them going and talking to their parents where they have no idea why they're acting a certain way and things like that. I've had tons of kids crying on my office floor because parents don't support. But they know that I'm there to show them that, you know, we can do this. We can reset on goals. We can, you know, you got to improve. And I mean, I'm the same way. I prepped all year last year. I did 3 shows. And literally right after Olympia, I'm like, I don't want to lose these abs. Like, this is like, I've been like this for a while. But you have to know why you're doing it. And you have to know that there's bigger, better things coming. And you have to change your body physique. And again, like she said, to go back to the real body. Because you cannot stay that lean for that long. And I think that's a big emphasis for a lot of the people, just in general public, who see us on social media at our best, you know, in photo shoots all the time. Because again, as all of us as athletes, you know, we barely post any off-season pictures.
Yeah.
We always go back to those photo shoots. But I think it's very important that we all express that we are human, and we all cannot regain that tiny bit of body fat for that long.
It's obviously, sometimes I do believe that the degree of the severity that these post-show depressions are hitting you also depends on how you just finished your last show of the season, right? So let's say if you are finishing on top in your show, you're probably going to be very motivated, and then you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to strategize and I'm going to go strong into my next prep. But if you didn't play so well, that's probably going to affect you at a certain level and even push you even deeper in that, right?
Absolutely. But I think, again, as coaches, oh, go ahead.
if you take that negative and you turn it into a positive, and then you twist that and you're like, no, I'm going to come back better. I think that is another way that you can approach it, so you can stop yourself from going into that type of depression.
Yeah.
It boils down to strategy. And I think for any athlete out there, for all the audience members watching, it's important to have a coach. And even more so, it's not just having a coach for prep. Off season and improvement season, as you mentioned, Theresa, I love it. It's the truth. And if you're really trying to make improvements and improve your placings in the sport, it's a year-round thing. Having a coach, 3 that are sitting right here and part of this show right now, is amazing. Obviously, a ton of information that you guys have provided. This has been one hell of a show already. So much content to discuss.
Absolutely.
I would love to dig a little bit into the post-show blues myself, actually, because like Theresa and Breena, something that really kind of went through my mind, and I just kind of realized this is, none of us are psychologists, but you kind of start feeling like therapists when you are a trainer, when you're a coach, because
that's a great point, Wendy.
Because you really are helping each person with the post-show blues that they are specifically dealing with, because whether someone does really well in a contest or does really bad in a contest, there are a unique set of mental health issues that people face. Like if somebody did really well, they're on this crazy high, right? They just spent the last however many months dedicating their entire life to this thing, and they're at the peak and the height of this accomplishment, and then they don't have, and then there's like this parade, and then it's over, and then poof, right? There's a depression, a depressive state, situational depression that happens with that type of person. And there's also an interesting, I think Theresa's a champion, obviously. The champion mindset, right, takes a defeat and turns it into a positive. Like, I'm going to come back stronger. And there are those champion people usually are trained by lots and lots of defeat and a lifetime of sports and going through it to get to that strong mindset. And I guess it's all of our job to help people through that, right?
Absolutely.
But there are people who get defeated, they're at the bottom, and they are out of their great shape, the party's over, and they don't feel like they have something to really hang on to keep.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. It's a matter of having a goal, right? And just losing that goal as soon as the show was done. So as we all talked about it today, I do believe that it's a matter of just pulling yourself together and setting yourself the next goal, right? Which probably it's not going to be in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, but you need to combine patience with setting up a goal for your next show, strategizing it, and then I think that you can come out of it easier. Or you do it like me, you take a week and go on vacation and you don't think about anything, and you go back home, and then you start with a new plan.
Gotta celebrate your hard work, whether you win or lose. It doesn't matter, you still gotta celebrate.
Absolutely. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being here with us today. It was a pleasure to hear your experiences and your advice for everybody. Thank you again, and we're looking forward to seeing you through your next on season. Thank you, guys. See you next time at FEMME FLEX Friday.